All right, good afternoon, everybody. I have 2:30 p.m., so we'll get started. My name is Jason Runyon. I'm a lead forecaster here at the National Weather Service Austin San Antonio Forecast Office. This is our 2:30 p.m. February 20th briefing on a potential freezing drizzle, freezing rain event that may develop tomorrow into Saturday morning. Some updates since our last forecasts. We are watching a threat for some increasing patchy freezing drizzle and freezing rain, albeit still low. We'll get into the probabilities here in a minute. Beginning late tomorrow afternoon and evening and continuing through Saturday morning. It could result in the potential for some winter weather advisories. We have not issued those yet. We're still waiting on some more model data. But don't be surprised if potentially some winter weather advisories are issued. Our extreme cold warnings have expired, and we have replaced those with a cold weather advisory that's in effect through tomorrow morning, and we'll get into those details here shortly. We will have one other scheduled briefing tomorrow, same time, 2:30 p.m. On Friday. And finally, we are recording this, and we'll have a PDF of these slides that will be emailed out soon after the webinar is completed. One other note, there is a feature within GoToMeeting where you can ask questions. You can type questions into a box, and at the end of this webinar, I'll get to any questions that you may have. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. The main points that we just want to stress here: the Arctic air mass that's been in place the last few days will remain in place across South Central Texas through Saturday morning. We are watching for some return of moisture to take place from the south to the north Friday into Saturday, and that should result in some patchy light precipitation developing late tomorrow afternoon and continuing through tomorrow night and into Saturday morning, primarily during that time across the hill country and along and just east of the I-35 corridor. Now we're going to watch for some windows of opportunity for the temperatures to be below freezing and result in some of that patchy moisture becoming patchy freezing drizzle and or patchy freezing rain. Again, primarily across the hill country and the I-35 corridor from the north side of San Antonio up to the Austin area. The onset time of that freezing drizzle, the patchy freezing drizzle, could begin as early as late tomorrow afternoon or early evening between 4 and 6 p.m. for a few locations, and then kind of increasing through the late evening and overnight areas for other locations. The ice accumulation forecast is generally light. We'll get into that here in a minute. Generally a few hundredths of an inch, mainly on elevated surfaces and metal surfaces. However, that can still lead to some slick spots quickly on some of the untreated overpasses and bridges, especially given how cold the temperatures have been the past few days. We do expect locations to go back above freezing late Saturday morning, so sometime between 9 a.m. and noon Saturday, and that should transition from a patchy freezing drizzle to more of a patchy cold rain. And then the rain could actually expand in coverage Saturday afternoon and Saturday night along and east of the I-35 corridor. Moisture should eventually kind of shift east of our region and out of the area by Sunday. So currently our temperatures, these are temperatures as of 2 p.m. are anywhere from the upper 20s still in portions of the hill country all the way to the upper 30s across portions of the coastal plain. So very chilly air mass still remains across South Central Texas. And on the right there, you can see the cloud cover has been very persistent across much of the region. We did see some clearing that took place earlier today across the Austin area, down into New Braunfels area and eastward, but that cloud deck is now expanding back to the north. And some of the deeper moisture farther south in the south and deep South Texas, we'll be watching to work up into this area late tomorrow and tomorrow night. That should lead to that precipitation. As far as our temperature forecast goes, this is the low and high temperature for tomorrow. We're looking at low temperatures tomorrow morning in the low to mid 20s across the hill country, portions of the I-35 corridor, lower 30s south of there, southern I-35 corridor, Rio Grande and coastal plains. High temperatures tomorrow. This will be very tricky depending on the cloud cover, but we are forecasting high temperatures to come just above freezing over the hill country and I-35 corridor. into the mid-30s for high temperatures tomorrow. We'll have to watch that very closely because that will be crucial on when the onset of freezing drizzle and freezing rain develops. As far as our forecast temperatures on Saturday, so this is the Saturday morning low forecast on the left and the high temperature forecast on the right. We're forecasting low temperatures Saturday morning in the upper 20s to around freezing across the hill country and I-35 corridor from the north side of San Antonio up through Austin. Again, that's going to be crucial to where the potential for some ice accumulation develops. I mentioned earlier we do expect temperatures to go back above freezing late Saturday morning, so by noon we should be back above freezing for most locations. And our high temperature forecast on Saturday calls for temperatures from the lower to mid 40s across the hill country I-35 corridor to low 50s across the Rio Grande. So this is looking at the chance of 0.05 of an inch or more of ice accumulation. So this is looking at several of our high resolution models that tend to do a little bit better with these types of events. And you can see we're starting to see some increasing confidence that we'll see at least a few hundredths of an inch of ice accumulation developing, mainly north side of San Antonio up into the hill country, up the I-35 corridor to into portions of Travis County, maybe not all the way into the Austin central area itself. That sample point is over downtown Austin that's showing 0%, but there's some outlying areas that are showing some probabilities of 20 to 30%, but at least 0.05 of an inch or more of ice accumulation. But the higher accumulation, the higher percentages for these accumulations are farther south over Hays, Comal, northern Bexar County, Kendall County, and into Medina County, where anywhere from 30 to 60% probabilities for these accumulations are forecast. Now, this is looking for a little bit higher accumulation forecast. What is the chance of receiving at least 1/10 of an inch or more? This starts to get into more closer to our warning criteria, and you can see it's a much lower probability of this, mainly confined to portions of the southern hill country west of the 35 corridor, kind of north of 1604 in Bexar County. Still seeing some probabilities of 1/10 of an inch or more of ice accumulations of about 10 to 30% in that region. So this is our official ice accumulation forecast. Again, as early as late Friday afternoon, again 4 to 6 p.m. for some spots, that could potentially pose some issues for the evening commute. But this runs all the way through Saturday morning, this ice accumulation forecast. A few hundredths of an inch for most locations that do receive this freezing drizzle and freezing rain through the hill country, northern San Antonio, maybe into the Austin metro area. But on that map, if you look, there's some patchy areas, that orange shading that's of 1/10 of an inch of more or ice accumulations in portions of Comal and northern Bexar County. So this is the most likely scenario. This is our official forecast that we're kind of going with right now. Now, some of the higher end model guidance, we just want to show some higher end scenario guidance, does show the possibility of more widespread accumulations of a few hundredths of an inch to up to 1/10 of an inch in many locations of the hill country and I-35 corridor, and then a slightly bigger expanded area of 1/10 of an inch or more, that orange shading through Comal, Kendall, northern Bexar, and Medina counties. This is kind of the higher end of our model guidance. On the low end of our model guidance, it's showing just 100 to 200ths of an inch of ice accumulations over portions of Hays, Comal, and northern Bexar County and Kendall County. So this is kind of the lower scenario. Now, when we translate that into impacts, so those are kind of the ice accumulation forecast. Well, what does that mean as far as impacts to the infrastructure, the bridges, the overpasses, the main roadways? This is looking at the potential, the chances of minor impacts. So we're looking at mainly impacts to elevated bridges, elevated overpasses. Don't concentrate too much on the exact locations where this blue shading is. The main point to kind of drive home with this slide is that the probabilities are low for impacts, especially minor impacts. So we're forecasting anywhere from 10 to 20% probability of kind of minor impacts of elevated bridges and overpasses through portions of northern Bexar County and into the southern hill country. We look at chances of moderate impacts. The main point I want to drive home here is that we're not really seeing that in this event. We're not seeing widespread disruptions to all the roadways and the infrastructure. We're not expecting accumulations that are going to cause tree branches to come down or power issues. This is kind of a minor nuisance type event that we're forecasting, mainly on the bridges and the overpasses. Finally, I just kind of want to point out the wind chill values. We have been under these extreme cold warnings the past day or two. The winds have slacked off a little. We're not quite getting as cold on the wind chills, but nevertheless, they are still cold. This is the forecasted minimum wind chill values for tomorrow morning. Lower teens through the hill country, upper teens to low 20s through the I-35 corridor and the coastal plains, low to mid 20 wind chill values down along the Rio Grande. We have issued a cold weather advisory for tonight, beginning 9 p.m. tonight through 9 a.m. Friday morning for those wind chill values. Finally, I wanted to kind of point out one resource for you where you can get hourly forecasts of our temperatures and our precipitation forecast at weather.gov/forecast points. That will bring you to a map across the whole U.S. Just center the point of your interest over your location and click on it, and that will give you an hourly look at many different weather elements and also a weekly kind of summary table. You can see this is kind of a sample point taken from Austin, looking at the forecast for temperatures out the next week. You can see as we get beyond Saturday, we do finally get a pretty good warm up that takes place back to near normal temperatures Sunday, and even above normal temperatures by the middle portion of next week. Speaking of the long range forecast, once we get past Saturday, this Arctic air should erode pretty quickly, and we'll be again transitioning back to near normal temperatures Sunday, and then eventually above normal temperatures towards the middle and latter portion of next week. So just to summarize kind of the main points, the Arctic air mass is going to remain in place through Saturday morning. We're going to watch for that moisture return taking place late tomorrow and into tomorrow night and Saturday morning, which could lead to some patchy freezing drizzle, patchy freezing rain across the hill country, southern hill country, the I-35 corridor from the north side of San Antonio through the Austin metro area. The onset time of that patching freezing rain and freezing drizzle could begin as early as late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening during the evening commute. So we'll have to kind of watch these bridges and overpasses pretty closely during that time. The ice accumulations, the official forecast are generally light, just a few hundredths of an inch, although some isolated patchy locations could get up to or just over a tenth of an inch in portions of Comal and northern Bexar County. Again, not forecasting any moderate impacts, just mainly minor impacts, slick spots that can quickly develop on our bridges and overpasses that have not been treated. Again, our locations should go back above freezing late Saturday morning. So sometime between 9 a.m. and noon Saturday, expect locations to go back above freezing, transitioning more to a patchy cold rain. And then the rain kind of expanding near or mainly east of the I-35 corridor Saturday afternoon and evening before shifting out of the coastal plains by Sunday. Finally, I want to leave you with some preparedness graphics that we do have available for winter safety at weather.gov/safety/winter. There's some great preparedness graphics that you can feel free to use and share. So again, our next briefing, we'll do one more briefing tomorrow afternoon, same time, 2:30 p.m. If you've already registered for this one, you don't need to register again. You should have been automatically registered for both of them. So finally, I'll pause here for any questions you may have. If you have any questions, feel free to type those into the questions box. Okay, I do have one here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so we had a question about the spring weather outlook webinar that we did this morning. So this morning, Mac Morris, our climate focal point, did a spring weather outlook that was recorded. He will be pushing that out soon. That was recorded, and we'll be pushing those slides and that recording out soon. The forecast, confidence in the forecast. So this is a pretty low confidence forecast. If I go back to those probabilities, And I'll just go backwards here on my slides. So these were the probabilities of getting at least a 5/100ths of an inch or more of ice accumulation. You can see anywhere from 10%, 10, 20% in some locations to 30 to 60% in other locations. So it's definitely a lot like our last winter storm that we had, where we had winter storm warnings. We were highly confident. We had over 80% confidence in that event. This is a pretty low to, I'd say, moderate confidence event in that 20 to 60% range confidence. Any expected changes? Certainly, yes, with a low confidence event like this, there could be changes. Don't be surprised if the cloud cover persists a little bit more than we think it does, and we don't get quite as warm as we think tomorrow, that the onset of this could be, more towards that 4 p.m. time frame. Don't be surprised if maybe we have to issue maybe a small winter weather advisory over a portion of the area. Okay, next question. What day and time should we prepare people for ice along the I-35 corridor? So again, this will be patchy in nature. It's not going to be this widespread ice event that develops. It could begin, the onset of this could begin as early as 4 to 6 p.m. tomorrow through portions of the I-35 corridor, the north side of San Antonio, up through Comal County, that 4 to 6 time frame tomorrow. Then expanding through the evening a little bit further north towards the Austin area. Again, patchy in nature. Any other questions? I'll leave it here for about another 30 seconds.